going to talk about millennials. And we talked a little bit about this morning, and I'm going to share with you, some information about them and do they need your financial institution. I have a follow-on presentation that maybe I'll get to do for you some other time. It's about my daughter. Will she actually bank with you? Paige, 12-year-old Paige. Will she at some point as she grows actually bank with your bank? So that's a good one too. But we're going to stick with this group and talk about this a little bit. Recently, I had the opportunity, which was really, really fun for me. I had the opportunity to go to this conference with all Gen Y and Gen Z and Gen X and millennial generation individuals, all students, so at the lower end of the spectrum. So I went to this conference called NACA, National Association of Campus Activities. Have you ever heard of it? It's been around for like 70 years. And it was probably at whatever college, university you went to, there was probably a NACA group that were participants. So they're actually students, and they're usually upperclassmen or graduate students, so junior, senior, or upperclassmen. And they're paid by the university, not very much, but they're paid by the university to be on the university's planning committee. Okay? So I don't know what I thought when I went to college many moons ago, but I guess I never thought about how all those lecturers and bands and comedians and circus performers or musicians or whatever showed up at my college, or poets or spoken word. I don't know how I thought they got there. I guess I thought the university hired them. But come to find out, it's the students in this NACA organization that actually hires all those people to come to college campuses, which I had no idea. And you know what? They have a trade show. They have a National Association trade show, once for the whole country, and then they have 7 regional trade shows. So picture this. Now, everybody in here has been to some type of trade show, whether it's local or state. You have the sessions during the day, you have the booth sometime during the day, usually at lunch, and then you have booth experience sometime in the evening, right? Everybody's been to one of those. So just shout an answer. What time do you think their conference started? 2:30. 2:30 in the afternoon. That's when they started. What time do you think their conference, the last session, ended? 11:30 at night. 2:30 to 11:30. Get this, no alcohol. That's a long day. That's a long day. No alcohol, because they're not of drinking age. The majority of them are not of drinking age, right? So 768 students, all millennials, came to this conference. And it was actually a great experience for me because, one, I found some place where you can actually get some very inexpensive entertainment. That's pretty good if you need some. But it gave me a chance to talk to all these millennials. And it was very exciting. So I'm going to share some of that experience as we go through. So millennials. All right. So who are they? They were born between 1980 and the year 2000, right? They're 18 to 34. There's actually about 80 million of them now. We talked about how they surpassed the baby boomers, so you guys already got that. They're tech dependent, which is an interesting term compared to tech savvy, right? Tech savvy, tech dependent. They're tech dependent, where I would say we're not even close to tech savvy as baby boomers. They're tech dependent more than tech savvy. Love instant gratification. They're the me, want it now. Big expectations, but it's said that they don't value all the steps it takes to get there, right? So they want the big reward, and they don't expect to work for a single company for very long, right? That's who they are. When I went to this trade show, it was interesting because when you look at how they look at themselves, they would say they're very tech savvy, right? They would say 65% would say we're tech savvy versus tech dependent. So they describe themselves that way, but I actually think they're not really as tech savvy. They're more tech dependent because they have been using technology since pretty much the day they could move, right? There's iPads. I mean, how many times do you see a little kid somewhere and they pick up a book and they try to move the book like an iPad or an iPhone, right? So it's just part of who they are. It's in their DNA. They say that they're people savvy, right? I totally disagree. I don't think that the majority of the younger part of the generation is that people savvy. The trade show was interesting. So I was invited to speak at this trade show. So guess how long I got to speak? 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That's how long you think about these sessions, right? We've all done an hour. 12 minutes. And let me tell you, at 11 and a half, they were like, get off the stage, right? Introductions were funny. They would have millennials that would introduce the people that were doing what they call these showcases. And so I would say that for the most of us, right, we would come out, we'd be very professional. We've reviewed the information that might be the little note or the bio about the person. This is them. They come out like this, right? And by the way, it was like a 10 by 10 stage. That was it, and a black curtain behind you. And they walked out in shorts or whatever, scrubs, whatever they had on, and this was them. Let me introduce you to Chris Peterson. Chris Peterson. And those were the people who were like trying out to be the MCs with their notes and how they were doing it. So I don't think they're very people savvy. They think they're very people savvy. I don't think so. They're at times hard to engage with, right? Difficult to engage with. You've been to trade shows and you walk around, you get some swag from different booths and you talk to different people. But for the most part, whether you're interested or not, you can carry on a pretty good conversation with anybody in the room, right? I would say that it was difficult for them. And we were like easy people to talk to. We had candy and coffee packets. And so they spent a lot of time at our booth because had a great subject and they were talking to us about it and coming to the college. But they just don't necessarily engage as well as they think they do. So it's very interesting. Loyal to their employers. They said 82% of them think they're extremely loyal to their employers. Do you think they're extremely loyal? You know what I've come to find out? It's a definition gap. Their loyalty is really about the time they're there and when they think that they're in the process, they're working for you, they're extremely loyal, even if it's 2 days, right? 2 days I was really loyal. I only worked there 2 days, but I was really loyal. I worked really hard for them, but it wasn't my thing, right? Wasn't my thing. So they think they're really loyal, not so much on my side. Fun-loving, they think they're a lot more serious than we think they are. 14%. They think that only 14% said they were fun-loving. Interesting, right? They take themselves a lot more serious. And then 86% said we are the hardest working generation. The hardest working. It's crazy. 86% think they're the hardest working generation. I actually think this is because their definition, again, is different. So they think that they're hardworking because they're working at 2 o'clock in the morning when you and I are sleeping. It doesn't matter that they didn't work the 12-hour day that we did. The fact that they're actually working at 2 o'clock in the morning makes them think that they work harder than we do. And it's not true of all millennials, so I don't want anybody to take offense. These are surveys that are published and done with tremendous amounts of statistics, and I can give you the whole study and thing. But it's not a negative, it's just a difference. And I think as marketing people, we have to understand the differences in how they view themselves. Look at this. Let's look at how HR professionals describe millennials, right? Remember over here, the people savvy, 65% of them think they're people savvy. Over here, 14 HR professionals said they're not people savvy at all. And I have to believe that this is probably closer. Like one of the things I thought was interesting about the trade show is we were talking about our presentations. It was myself and another speaker, and we were doing presentations, and we both have books that we've done. And so the way that this conference works is they come and you do these showcases, and then they come to your booth and they hire you to come speak at the college, which is an interesting thing. I never knew this organization existed. And so you're a lecturer. You may be competing with a magician, Like the guy next to you, he's juggling or an acrobat. There's all these singers. People are singing in their booth. It's crazy. It's crazy. People are singing in their booth. Bands are playing. It's just really exciting, though. But you're in competition with all these people. And the funny thing about that is the person that was also with me, he owns his own company. I've owned and sold my own companies. I work for a huge global technology company for years. Hire a lot of people. You guys hire a lot of people. I don't think once it ever crossed their mind that we might actually hire them, right? That they could actually, and these are all kids who are getting ready to graduate. So they had these really interesting conversations. So I said to people, so what do you have a job? No, I haven't started looking yet. When are you graduating? May. I was like, what do you want to do? I'm going to own my own business. I said, you are? That's awesome. Who wants to own their own business? Everybody, right? We'd all, theoretically, would love to own our own business, right? So next question. So what is your business going to be? Well, I don't know yet. I can't tell you how many people I talked to that were just like, I don't know yet. But they're going to own their own business. And then when you talk about banking, holy smokes, they don't understand banking at all. When I did that presentation earlier talking about, putting in the education section in your bank, let me tell you, your first one should be on educating targeted towards millennials and how banking works. Because they don't understand banking at all. At all. It's amazing. We'll talk about it a little further. Loyal to their employers, 1%. HR people said 1% are loyal. I think that's a definition thing. Our definition of loyalty is different than their definition of loyalty, right? If you think about millennials, many of them have only worked seasonal work, right? And I'm not saying that those aren't professional careers, but more seasonal or part-time, haven't worked full-time in the workforce consistently for years. So their definition, I think, of loyalty is different than our definition. And then we do, HR professionals think they're party people. 39% are much more fun than they think they are. And 11% are very hardworking. Interesting how they perceive themselves. So I talked to them a lot about banking. So 33% of those surveys thought that they would not need a bank in 5 years. They're not going to need any of us in this room. Don't need it. Not going to use it. Half of them did not have a credit card. Less than half had a credit card. Isn't that amazing? As a matter of fact, the credit card situation was interesting. So I went out to dinner. My family went out to dinner about a week ago. And there was a young lady. She's a millennial. Young lady. Her name's Megan. She's a manager at this really great bakery in my town. And she does a great job. And we saw Megan there. So she came over and sat with us for a bit. And so we were talking, and Megan doesn't have a car. Her car was breaking down, so she sold her car, okay? She bikes to work every day. And I live in a small town, so it works. So she bikes to work every day. But she wants a new car, so she's been saving for a new car. So she has a checking account with Wells Fargo, which I told her, okay, I don't want to say anything bad about that, but you might want to, there's some really terrific community banks in my town. You might want to go meet with them. And so we were talking about she wanted to buy a car. So, excuse me, Megan has saved $18,000 up for her car, working in the bakery, biking to work every day. Pretty good, right? $18,000, I think, is a considerable amount of money for a young lady to have. I didn't have $18,000 on hand at her age. So she has $18,000. I asked her how much the car was that she wanted to buy. She said 23. She wants to buy a little Subaru that costs 23. I was like, oh, you're almost there. So I said, well, have you ever thought about getting a loan? And she's like, well, I don't know how to do that. And I said, well, you, first of all, go talk to your local banker and sit down and talk about what you want to do and, talk about that. She said, well, I don't have a credit. I can't even get a credit card. I have no credit. I can't get any because she paid cash for everything. And she saved her money. She doesn't have a credit card. So I said, okay, well, why don't you go talk with Emily, my banker. Why don't you go talk with Emily and tell Emily that you would like to build some credit. So who in this room would help her? Everybody would help her, right? And I said, but it's interesting. She doesn't even know what to do. I said, Megan, go in, sit down, talk with the banker. You have money, so you could give some money to the bank in secured funds to the bank, and the bank could make you a loan, and then you could pay back the loan, and then you could give the money to the bank in secured funds, and then they could make you another loan, and you could pay back the loan, and you would build yourself some credit, right? And plus, you'd get to know the banker, and you'd build a relationship. So you know what she asked me? She said, well, if I do that, will they keep my secured money? I was like, no. You're only going to keep the money as security till you pay off the loan. Then you're going to get the money back. It's the collateral. And she's like, and they would let me do that. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. They'd let you do that. So they have no knowledge, really. Many, and she's a bright girl. And she's very smart. She's saved her money, but she doesn't have a relationship with the bank, right? And she does need some credit, so she has to get one. So you have two sides, right? You have the half that buy everything on credit, and then you have the other half that don't even have a credit card, right? 50% are counting on startups in the fintech environment to make banks obsolete. 50% think that there's going to be apps and startup technology companies that are going to make all the banks obsolete. I don't know where they're going to actually keep the money, but maybe they think that there won't be any money, like there won't be cash, right? That there'll be Bitcoin and all this cloud cash. I don't know. But 50% think that they are not going to have banks anymore and they'll be overhauled by fintech companies. When I talk about millennials, people ask me all the time, do they like banks or do they not like banks? I don't get it. Some say they like banks, some say they don't. So there's conflicting information as to whether they like us or not. So I don't think that they don't really dislike us, right? They just want us to be better. So that's the next interesting thing. Go try and define better with a millennial and have them articulate what better means. It's very difficult. They just know they want them better, right? So what does better mean? Is that better, like faster, better, open 24 hours? What is better? So defining better is very difficult. But they do want their banks to advise them. So they trust the community bank to advise them. They just got to figure out how to engage with the community bank at a time and how they want to be advised by the community bank, right? So that's good. And they want more automated functionality, which absolutely cracks me up because, oh my goodness, don't you feel like everything's automated almost? I mean, aside from the robot coming out into the lobby itself and greeting the customer, I just feel like everything is automated. But to them, they want every single thing automated. They want to be able to self-serve in every different way, person-to-person payments all the time, immediate credit, all of it. They want more automation. So to me, that's just funny because, of course, we started with no automation. And they want human contact when they need it. So we were just talking. Apparently, there's a Hertz Donuts, which I didn't know what a Hertz Donuts was, but I just found out that Hertz Donuts is right across the street, and they're open 24 hours a day. I'm like so excited. I'm going over there, and I'm going to get a donut. So if anybody wants, I might get a couple today, tonight, tomorrow. But that's a great example, right? They must have done some research that said there's a certain population that will come in and get the donuts 24 hours a day. So I had to laugh. Remember that Dunkin' Donut guy that had to get up and bake the donuts? Remember that commercial? He's never going to sleep again, right? He's toast. He's got to work for every minute making those donuts. But that's the thing, right? Millennials want it when they want it. So, okay, what if they don't like banks? They're turned off by banks because they say they don't have great products and services. So what does that mean? So here's an example of what they mean. And I think this is an interesting concept. So has anybody spent much time looking at how millennials buy things? Have you spent much time doing that? They consume products differently than the baby boomers. They buy in increments, except if it's a flat screen TV. Then they'll go buy it right away. But everything else, they give They're very socially conscious. They give in smaller increments. They buy in smaller increments. So a loan is a good example, right? So they get their loan from the bank. They want to pay pennies every day towards the loan payment, right? They don't want to make one loan payment a month. They don't want to make a loan payment and a principal-only payment, right? They want to make an X pennies on the dollar, dollars a month every day until it adds up to their loan payment. And you know what? You can charge them more for that, and they'll pay it. They'll pay it. But it's interesting because our systems can't do that, right? Can you imagine going into your computer department or FIS? I worked at FIS for 25 years. Hey, they want to collect loan payments every day. The people who wrote those wonderful core systems, Horizon, IBS, all those wonderful FIS systems I sold, and Jack Henry system, they'd be like, get out of our office. We're not going to write that. But that's how they want to consume services. So to be honest, I think it's a pretty good idea. So they think their products and services are old, that they don't meet their need. And therefore, they're like, see, I'm not going to need a bank because somebody else is going to figure out how to do that. Somebody else is going to let me book a loan, and somebody else is going to let me pay every day, and I'm going to be thrilled, and they're going to make more money off that loan than the traditional bank, and I don't care because that's how I want to pay for it. Interesting, right? Who would have thought? So why should we care? Well, I went over a little bit this earlier today, so I'm not going to spend all much time on it, but their financial assets are growing, obviously. In 2015, it grew to $1.4 trillion and $11.3 trillion on their own. They're going to have that whole generational pass down over the next 20 years that we talked about. 11% of millennials say that growing their retirement nest egg is one of their top goals. Interesting, right? But how many of us talk to them about their retirement? Never. We don't ever. My friend is in the investment community, and he has a large client conference that he's running and speaking at this week as well. It started today, actually. And it's funny, we were both speaking about millennials. He's speaking about how part of it is a sales conference for his sales team across the country, and it's about how do they go engage millennials in investment conversation because they are going to be getting money. So they're doing that, so you have to do that, right? 8% of their income is already in retirement funds. They're already putting it in somewhere. It's going somewhere. So if you don't have 8% of their income, you got to find it. Now, 8% of their income isn't all that much money. I'll be real honest, but it's going to be. And if they're in the habit, the thing about millennials that's great is once they get in the habit of doing something, once they sign up for like charitable giving, they just give. And it's a payment they make and they never pay attention to it. And it just automatically pays and pays and pays. Same thing with saving. Once they get in the habit, it automatically saves. We talked about that this morning. So when we're courting millennials, we want to make sure that they have good options, right? So we're going to talk about that a little further. We want to make sure that we're serving them how they want to serve. Now, this is where, people talk about millennials and talk about entitlement. This is where they get a little bit of the entitlement attitude, is because they want to be served the way they want to be served and not necessarily the way we served the baby boomers or the older generations. So, and they feel like that's their right. So it's not a bad thing, it's just different. They want to bank whenever they want to bank, like the Hertz Donuts. They want to bank 24 hours a day. So that's a challenge for a lot of community banks because they don't usually staff 24 hours, even if it's online. How many banks have 24-hour online access with a person if you need help? Yeah, look, nobody raised their hand. It's a tough one. You are going to have to start staffing for that to get to this generation because when they're doing their bills at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have got to be there to answer them if they need to. Even a small community bank, you have to. So you're going to have to figure that out. Otherwise, they're not coming. I'm just here to tell you. If they pick up the phone and it's after 5 and they can't get to you, or it's a Saturday and nobody's responding, they're done. They're not going to bank with you. So that is something we have to figure out as a banking community. So what should we do if we want them to come, right? We need to educate them on our offerings. We need to give them choices. We need to be transparent. We need to recognize their diversity. Remember, Kelly talked about diversity too. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And I don't dislike the word, but I think she's right. I think people think of diversity as race. They immediately go to what race, and it's not at all. I mean, that's a component of their definition, but they have a different definition. And then how do we leverage other millennials? So I'm going to give you some insight, and then we're going to look at the opportunity with the insight. They want consistent communication from their bank. So they actually do want you to communicate with them, and they want you to communicate with them consistently. So interesting, because I didn't know that. I thought, what do they care? But they do. They want you to communicate and send important information. They don't want you to waste their time, and we'll talk a little bit later about things that waste their time when you communicate with them. And they want to use channels they want to use, right? So they want to text, they want to use mobile apps, they want to use their website, they want to use telephone at times, they want to be able to do on things self-serve, they want help when they want it. So what's our opportunity? Our opportunity is to deploy a multi-channel communication, right? So I was talking a little bit earlier about this bank. It's Citizens Bank in Edmond, Oklahoma. You're shaking your head, so you must have heard of them. So they have a new president, woman CEO, that is changing that bank. And it all started because when she took over the slot of CEO, she didn't have any money, or the board, long story short, she wanted to do an overhaul of her whole website and all of that, but they weren't making a lot of money. It was even questionable at the time whether the bank would actually survive or have to sell. And so she didn't have the money to go create the great, amazing, gorgeous website that she wanted. So she started using social media very heavily to tweet and to communicate through Facebook and tweet. And so now she's made tons of money and has redone her website, but she still tweets. So you should go look up at this bank. She's known. She's been given a ton of awards for the social media presence that they have online. And she really did it for nothing, right? It was a person in time, right? She had a great marketing person, right, who wasn't the person who was tweeting for her, but was working with, the marketing team was the people who were working with what should be tweeted and what should go out all the time. And she really has done a terrific job. So if you should go follow her. I think all of you especially would be amazed what you can do well, I think we all know what can happen on the bad side on tweeting. So this is more the good side on tweeting, right? Okay, so take a look at that. They want a differentiated experience, and they want to leverage analytics and tools. So how many of you have any analytics that they can use readily available? Hardly any, right? I mean, I don't even have to, hardly any. They're picture people. They are picture people. You have to give them graphs and tools and what ifs and, all that type of stuff. That's how they gather information. So you need to make sure that they have some tools that they can use for analysis, right? So that's a lot. And all these channels, right, in no particular order, email, text, website, apps. Apps are becoming more and more. All the apps that you can use, it's crazy all the apps you can use. Are you guys familiar with like Venmo? Do you know what Venmo is? Venmo is a person-to-person payments app. I see people shaking their head. Person-to-person payments app. Tons of millennials use it. Digit is another one. That's a budget system on an app. Are you familiar with Budget? It's pretty cool. If there's another one called Acorns. Have you ever heard of Acorns? Go Google Acorns. It's a great app. Does anybody use Acorns? You do. It's an awesome app. It helps them invest their funds, and they don't have to really know anything. Right? You fill out your profile when you say that it tracks how much you spend, then it comes up with a recommendation to save. As an example, you could save, I think it's between 5 cents, again, how they contribute, right? Between 5 cents and $150 a day is the max, okay? And then it takes that money that they save and it puts them into investment products for them. It's great. It's a great app. Now, I'm hoping that all that's legit and they have very strong investors who are figuring out where that all gets invested, and I'm sure it's safe and you sign a bunch of disclaimers. But the point is, it's a way for them to save, right? Everybody knows of the Sum It Up programs where you save your extra change, and most of the banking systems still can't do that. So you've got to figure out how your apps are going to work with these other apps, right? Because if you're waiting for, honestly, companies like, and I love them, FIS, Fiserv, Jack Henry, all those companies come up with cool stuff in payments. They are, but by the time it trickles down to a bank your size to be able to afford it, sometimes it's very hard. But there's apps being created that you can work with. So when you're doing that education in your bank, you should be also educating on some of these apps and how they're going to work with your bank, right? Because they need your bank to do it, right? But they can. So the more you engage, the better off you'll be. Okay, another insight. Tech-savviest group. Not tethered to any single delivery choice, right? Not even in all of their life. So what? They can use Uber, they can use Lyft, they can use taxis, they can use Netflix, they can use iTunes, download movies on iTunes, they can stream stuff, cable, DirecTV, ebooks, all of that. They want a lot of choices, and they want to be able to use whatever they want. You know, interesting about the gentleman who was speaking before about iTunes, because my daughter's generation and most of the millennials that I know don't use iTunes anymore. They use Spotify and Pandora. They don't download anything. So quite honestly, I should call them up because I got like a bazillion of those iTunes cards for $15, you know, that I thought were like I bought, and I'm like, oh, I'll use these stocking stuffers. And they don't even want them. They don't even want them. Even though it's money, they don't care because they don't want to consume that product that way anymore, right? They just want to, now they're all about their $15 a month or $5 a month or $8 a month they pay for Spotify and Pandora. And oh my gosh, if somehow that payment gets cut off, you know, you could be like, hey, you can just go down. I have hundreds of cards here. You know, you could go download 1,000 songs. I don't want to download anything. So they want to consume differently. Choices in regard to how they bank and with which banker, and then the platform of their choice, right? So I want to pay attention to the with banker. So one of the things that the studies are showing is that a millennial wants a banker. They don't want any banker. They want a banker. They want somebody who knows them. And they want to build a relationship with a banker, right? And then get this. You know how you come in, you now I have a banker, and then I want to get a loan, so the banker hands me off to the loan officer, right? That's pretty normal, and they don't want to be handed off. They want their trusted banker to come with them and to go talk to the loan officer with them. Giving you the privilege to keep their money at the bank, right? Wow. I'm like, and there's hundreds. Have you gone out on YouTube? Oh my gosh, you can go out on YouTube and you should take that home and get some of those and show your board of directors. I mean, they would be shocked. So what that tells me is these people are not ugly or awful people. They don't understand. They don't understand how the whole banking system works. They don't understand. They don't understand that some nice vendor like my old company, FIS or Fiserv or Jack Henry or whoever, charges you millions of dollars to run the bank, right? They have no idea. They think you're just, give me some more, putting it in your pocket. Give me some more, put it in your pocket. Crazy. You should just have the privilege to keep their money there forever. And they should just be able to do as many transactions as they want. I don't know how they think you get paid. Right? I don't know. Maybe that's why there's not going to be any need for a bank, because there isn't going to be any, because they don't want to pay for anything. So education, it's really important, right? You're going to have to educate these millennials because they don't understand. They think they're getting ripped off. They don't understand that it costs you money to do a debit transaction. Somebody's charging you that They don't understand that, right? They don't understand that every single check that goes through costs you money, that every electronic transaction costs you money, that every ACH costs you money. So very interesting to listen to them talk. They're great people. They were all very nice. And all I said was, hey, so what do you think about your bank? Oh, they charge me all the time. I don't know what the fees are for. Go do some of your own research. Go out and videotape your own community. It's pretty interesting. Transparency. They want to know everything. They want to understand everything. And I think they will listen. So that is the thing. Somehow we've got to break through and get them to listen to us. I put this in because I thought you would appreciate it. This is Nordnet. Their whole media campaign is about transparency. How, here's why there's fees. You can look at them online. They're an online bank. Here's fees. Here's the fees we have. We're all about honesty. We're all about trust. We're all about innovation and transparency. Come to us. We'll tell you everything. We'll never lie to you. So nice campaign, right? Really nice campaign to hit the millennials. I'm going to hurry up for a minute. Okay. Very diverse group. We talked about that. Kelly talked about that a little bit. Doesn't mean necessarily race. It just means they're very different in how they aggregate. So a lot of them still live at home and are going to continue to live at home, which is different, right? A lot of them have, the statistics show their relationship with their parents is better than our relationship was with our parents. Interesting. And they still live at home. My parents and I had a great relationship, but I couldn't wait to move out, and they couldn't wait to have me move out. But their relationship with their parents, markedly, is noted to be very well, even though they're living at home. Some are married, looking to purchase a house. Some are still in college 8 years later, looking to start their retirement savings early, want to own their own businesses, all those different things. So we need to respect and cater to their diversity. So if you have diversity in your bank, and again, I don't mean race, I mean people who have different lifestyles, right? You need to match them to the millennials. They like diversity and want it to be matched. Here's a couple statistics. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip through this a little bit. It's actually in the document, but it just has some stats on what millennials are concerned about and what non-millennials are concerned about, because I wanted to get to this one, because I think this is very important. Millennials are inspired by other millennials, okay? So who in your bank is your millennial spokesperson? You're actually the millennial, so that's helpful because you're leaps and bounds ahead. But in your bank, who is your millennial spokesperson, right? Nobody. Like, Kelly wasn't kidding when she was saying that, that guy was saying he cashes for old people. It's the same thing about resources in your bank, right? If a young millennial comes in and wants to get a loan and the person is older than their dad, right, that's not how they engage. They don't like that. They trust other millennials. How many of your banks have put up videos on YouTube with testimonials from anybody, for that matter, but specifically geared towards millennials? How many have done any YouTube videos? That's how this group and this generation engages and learns. They're fact finders. They Google all that. Oh my God. And my daughter, even at 12, she's doing it. I'll ask questions. She'll be like, let me Google. I'm like, no, I want you to think about the answer. She's like, but Mom, I can just Google it, right? They want to learn how to braid their hair. What do? Go to YouTube. They want to learn about anything. They go to YouTube and learn all about how to put on makeup, how to, whatever. You know what would be a great video to put out for YouTube is to talk about how you do holds on your debit card. Right? All these kids use debit cards. All these millennials in their 20s, they're all using debit cards, right? So it drives me nuts because I'm obviously so close, near and dear to community banks, and I check into a hotel, right? I check into a hotel, and what do I hear in front of me? There's somebody standing in front of me who's checking in, and in front of them is this very nice hotel clerk down here, and they're explaining in not so graceful terms why this person has to be careful now because there's going to be a hold on their debit card, so they got to be careful. They can't go just buy nilly-willy whatever they want to buy because the funds aren't there. Right? Should the hotel clerk be explaining to our customer why we're putting holds on our debit card? I don't think so. Certainly not the way they were explaining it, right? It was not very flattering to community banks, I can tell you that much. So that would be a good one. People don't understand that, right? They don't understand why there's holds on debit cards. You know what else? All the risk information. You know, this group is at times paranoid as it is. So if you did some risk videos that talked about skimming and that talked about, you know, going to the gas station and making sure there wasn't a skimming device and, you know, not just openly buying everything online without thinking through if there's security online and, you know, people, those are great videos for community banks to do. And easy. So you really need some type of millennial engagement, whether it's a spokesperson or through YouTube videos or anything like that. I just have 2 more slides before we're going to finish up, but because I know that I'm getting to the drink, so I'm going to let you out just a tad early. Okay, so the other thing is people always ask me, you know, and there's tons of studies, and I think this is good for this particular group, right, on how millennials make their buying decisions. So it's like very contradictory at times. So you kind of have to weed through it, and sometimes you have to see what happens. But basically, if you just send promotional emails to them and they haven't chosen that that's the way I want you to communicate, 32% of the time, they actually don't care. Has no effect, right? So if I say I want you to text me and you email me, I don't look at it. So choices. You have to make sure they have given the choices. Ads on news and entertainment websites, pretty much don't care. Promotional text messages, don't care so much unless that's the way they are asked to be communicated.